The disaster. To the sound of the ballroom orchestra, Titanic sped on through the night, while the vast Milky Way, in regal display, looked down as an audience might, viewing a stage where all was made ready, with curtain just waiting to rise, on a drama supreme where each chilling scene would be frozen forever in time. But unlike a theatre where stage is well lit, Titanic sailed swiftly in gloom. With lunar month ending, darkness descended, and the sky was bereft of the moon. While passengers mingled in gay party mood, and the captain slept soundly in bed, the black gang below made furnaces glow, stoking to earn daily bread. The night watch for lookouts started at 10, so climbing that sentinel mast, fleet and lead took positions to look, eagle-eyed, on that ocean so vast. Though suitably dressed for Titanic's crow's nest, they had no binocular aid, just bare naked eyes to view sea and sky up high in that small palisade. And now yet again, Californian once more sent warnings with prompts and advice to stop for the night and wait for good light, as he himself did mid the ice. But Phillips was swamped with his workload, relaying passenger stuff. So he silenced that last warning message with, "I'm busy working, shut up." For 90 minutes the lookout surveyed horizons of cold, freezing ocean, when both were amazed to see a strange haze before them with ship in full motion. Then through the mist, just a few moments later, a sight that would stop any heart. A towering mass of ice that, alas, was standing in Titanic's path. An iceberg 60 feet high loomed ahead, just 500 yards from Titanic. Irresistible force and immovable object meeting at night mid-Atlantic. The lookout's reaction was swift and precise to ring the alarm bell 3 times, then telephone straight to the bridge to relate 3 words to be etched on their minds. Iceberg right ahead was the message of dread that filled the ship's bridge with alarm, and officers Moody and Murdoch on duty now shouted to shatter the calm. Hard a starboard, the helmsman was ordered. Reverse the engine, then pause. Then full astern, while a lever was turned to shut all her watertight doors. They counted the seconds, 37 in all, as Titanic went veering to port, till metal and ice resolved in a trice the statement that vanity wrought. For that mighty ship they called unsinkable, now in joust with the iceberg collides, and in just 10 seconds a destiny beckons that none had envisaged worldwide. Her starboard side scraped down the iceberg, nearly 300 feet of her length, with thousands of rivets now popping, diminishing power and strength. And although that great ship was still sailing, she was wounded where no one could see. Her hull buckled in, yes, that thick double skin, neath the waterline, shipping in sea. Murdoch now quickly summoned the captain, who waking then quickly rose up to take his position and make the decision for Titanic's engines to stop. The captain then sent down for Andrews, Titanic's onboard designer, to help him survey any damage that may have affected the now drifting liner. As midnight arrived, a small group descended to view the grim scenes below decks, where water now gushed through a hull that was crushed, with pumps having dismal effect. Though Titanic's safety compartments meant 4 could be filled and she'd float, 6 had been breached, so water now reached to all sections and holds of the boat. Yes, water had risen in just 20 minutes, from keel up 24 feet. Then Thomas Andrews gave his pronouncement in a summary, dread and complete. Titanic will sink within 2.5 hours. The captain's worst fears are confirmed. After 2 days of warnings from so many calling, he stands with his bridges all burnt. Smith quickly orders calls of distress be sent out along with position, so Phillips and Bride now send far and wide by wireless their pleas for assistance. Meanwhile, elsewhere around the Titanic, passengers seemed unaffected, for all that was heard was a bump that occurred way below and by most undetected. But now, as alarms with urgency spread, the band plays for cheerful effect a ragtime selection to quell insurrection in the lounge and then up on deck. 12:20 a.m. the captain gives orders that lifeboats be ready and filled. But with only few, the prospect in view is one that now fear might instill. 12:25, the liner Carpathia, some 58 miles southeast, responds to the message and heads for Titanic, but she'll be 3 hours at least. At 12:45, the first of the lifeboats is lowered away quite safe. Although able to carry some 65 people, it has on board just 28. A rocket streaks up and bursts overhead, the first of 8 to be fired, while Morse lamps are used by members of crew to inform of a status now dire. And so in succession the lifeboats are lowered, along with the order since cursed, confusing decisions upholding tradition, save women and children first. With only half of the lifeboats required, and most of these only half filled, the price on demand for those in command was now clearly seen, later billed. For well over 2,000 souls now stood on that doomed but still floating grave, as captain and crew assigned to a few the allotment of who might be saved. Meanwhile, Titanic, now low in the water, sent word from her wireless room, "We are sinking fast, and we cannot last," her epitaph written in gloom. And so as the scenes turned to panic and fear, those battling their way up on top, with time running out, heard officers shout, "Stand back from the boats or be shot." And those last to go boats, now seen overcrowded, descending came near to collide, while collapsible sea has there in its number Director Bruce Ismay inside. At 1:55, John Jacob Astor was barred out from boat number 4, while his bride, Madeline, the girl of his dreams, got on board to see him no more. Before they were freed from their duties, the Marconi men duly sent the last of their messages asking for help, though Phillips stayed on to the end. Finally, Smith now returned to his bridge to face the conclusion, announcing, "Each man for himself, though position and wealth meant nothing with all appertaining." The choices were few, for what could one do to survive in that ocean of ice? But nevertheless, many leapt from the decks and took to the waves with their lives. But suddenly now the mighty Titanic was viewed as never intended, as her bow sank below the ocean to show her stern and propellers upended. And in that brief moment, all things on the ship crashed down to the bow thunderously, as the lights all went out mid screaming and shouts, and her front funnel plunged to the sea. And so to finale of grotesque disaster, as the lifeboat's occupants view, the stress factors take their toll to then break the almighty Titanic in two. For she snapped like a dry twig in autumn, behind the third funnel and last. Her steep angled bow, detached, plummets down to the depths with shuddering blasts. For a moment the stern section righted itself, only to fill up with ocean. Then standing on end, it slid to descend out of sight from those scenes of commotion. And in those last moments, witnesses state, indelible scenes had been viewed, such as Thomas Andrews staring in space, facing death in the ship's smoking room. Wealthy Ben Guggenheim and his valet, in best evening dress, made descent, to recline in deck chairs on the grandiose stairs, sipping brandy, awaiting the end. While up on the deck, with band still playing, a priest called Father Tom Biles heard all those confess who, in their distress, came to do so, waiting in line. Also, amidst all the turmoil were those who faced the grim reaper with grace, singing along in chorus those songs that were written to give hope and faith. Then, in the death throes, consumed by sheer panic, as hundreds more took to the waves, 2 boats slid down from the decks to be found by those who swam out to be saved. However, the chances were slim for survival in that ice field of thermal disaster, for many of those who were pulled out just froze and expired due to cold shortly after. And then, as the noise and confusion abated, a strange, eerie silence ensued, with only the shouts of lifeboat lookouts locating the other boat crews. Reports state that only number 12 lifeboat returned for survivors that night, this being due, according to crews, that they'd risk overload and capsize. The last of those ensnared boats to float off now heaved with desperate souls, while those in the sea clutched onto debris from the ship's lounges, cabins, and holds. But some, by tying their lifeboats together in groups, kept their spirits alive, determined to cope while pinning their hopes on the mandate they had to survive. So apart from the sound of oars in the water and pitiful cries for assist, silence and gloom now pervaded the tomb where malevolence wrote a long list. And so with mute prayers, all in the lifeboats now wait for the blessing or curse, aware that their lives and hopes to survive are in transit for better or worse.